Hello and welcome to the Hands Up If You're Human podcast, an ongoing series of conversations dedicated to exploring and celebrating the messy reality of being human. The truth is, there is nothing any of us can think, say, do, or experience that isn't 100% human. So it's time to drop the shame and the guilt, accept everything that we are, and start working to create the lives we really want to live. My name is Wyndham. I am the Blueprint Coach, and welcome to season 3 of the podcast. And as I said in the intro to the season episode previously, this season is inspired by the idea of finding your freedom. And when I was thinking about this, I wanted to include voices and people and perspectives and insight, primarily from people who I find inspiring or who have been pivotal in my own adventure to find my freedom. And I am delighted that the first episode of this season is with someone who undoubtedly has played an enormously pivotal role at one point in my own adventure. So, corporate escapee, ex-salesman, yoga teacher, yoga studio owner, community creator, sound healer, life coach, podcast host. It is my very great pleasure to welcome to the podcast my very first yoga teacher, Chris Abay. How are you, Chris? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey Wyndham, I'm really well, thank you. It's lovely to hear from you. Gosh, that was a great intro. Thank you, thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Good. I'm so pleased that you have, because I think there's, in all of our lives, there are these multiple points that at the time we don't realize are these big inflection points, or have maybe not even big inflection points, but have a real strong resonance in our lives. And so from where I am now, I can reflect on that very first yoga class I walked into. I think it was the hall by Sainsbury's in Wallingham, and did my first yoga class with you. And the just the balance you have between the philosophy of yoga and the physical side of yoga, the asana practice, the movement of the body, was perfect for me, and undoubtedly helped me start on a journey of personal discovery. What I'd love to do is get straight into it with finding your freedom. Actually, no, I have a question before that. What is missing from that list? Corporate escapee, ex-salesman, yoga teacher, yoga studio owner, community creator, sound healer, life coach, podcast host. That is just a Wyndham-sized window into Chris Abay. What's missing from that list?
Father of 3,
Mm-hmm.
global traveler. Ah, I don't know. Real dude, I guess. Someone who doesn't prepare answers.
Like that.
Makes mistakes. I'm a person who makes mistakes. There you go.
And owns them.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because those are simply labels, and I've been reflecting on labels and how they are just this shortcut, but carry so much meaning and potential weight, expectation, roles and responsibilities within them. I'm always just fascinated to hear how people perceive themselves or don't.
Yeah, well, I guess I perceive myself as a bloke that's doing what he can. I mean, I was born to like immigrant parents. I went to a bog standard school. I didn't really get thrown many chances in life, but I guess I was lucky enough to trust my instincts often enough not to get too derailed. Although I have been seriously derailed. You mentioned corporate life and ex-salesman. I am an ex-corporate salesperson, and that was the most, I mean, a very successful part of my life, but also a very toxic part of my life. So I clearly wasn't following, well, maybe I was. I mean, I'd like to say I wasn't following my destiny at the time, but I probably was. That was part of what I had to go through to become what I'm becoming now. And I still don't know. I mean, I'm 55, and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I feel like I'm still a child, kind of trying different things and moving in different directions. So yeah, hey, I don't know. I don't really know what label to put on myself anymore. I wouldn't call myself the corporate stuff anymore. Like you, I'd quite like to. Well, I won't say what you'd want to do, but I would like to burn down the corporate world. I would like it. I found it
Yeah.
personally so toxic. And even though I haven't been part of it for over a decade now, the scars of being part of the corporate world left on me, the target-driven environments, the international responsibility, the the vocabulary, the interactions between human beings, the toxicity of it has left so many scars on me. I'm still not free of it, even after years and years and years of investigating yogic philosophy and tantra and asana and traveling around the world. I'm still not free of the burden that burnt into me. So yeah, what am I? I suppose I'm a person escaping all that. Doing
Mm, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because especially that idea of very successful, very toxic, that the kind of success and toxicity are completely connected in that element of your life, your story.
for sure. Yeah, I'm still slightly confused by it. I have certain students who come through the studio who are clearly very, very successful and really nice people, and they practice yoga, but and yet somehow I can see that trait that I don't know what to call it. It's almost like the devil has lassoed their attention and pulled them off their rails, and
Mm,
they're headed in a direction where I don't know what you get at the other end because I've never been to the other end, but I think it's something to do with addictions to working or alcohol or drugs or uh deviance or something, because the human soul can't rest easy in that environment forever, in my view.
yeah.
Sounds heavy, doesn't
Well, I
it?
think it is. But I also think one of the reasons I'm so excited about this season and the podcast in general is this is so many people's experience of their life. And your reference to it's like the devil has lassoed them and pulled them off their track. I'm getting to a place with my own adventure where it's an adventure, not a journey. For me, the language of a journey is, well, there's a known start and a known end. Not always true. I understand that. For me, an adventure is, well, it could go anywhere. I don't know. And it almost feels when you said that the devil has lassoed them off their track, it's almost like the devil has lassoed them onto his track.
Mm,
And it's like this, regardless of how much we try
mm,
to jump out of it, we're on those rails and it takes a big moment to derail us. And we fear the derailment, but actually it's almost certainly the best thing that could happen. I say almost certainly because there are exceptions, but yeah, fascinating start. I want to ask in all of these upcoming episodes, there's really only two questions that I have pre-formulated. One is what's missing from the list, which you've answered beautifully in that what I'm taking from it is what I'm choosing to take from it is labels are confining. And what I get from you, having known you for the number of years that I have, there is this, what I take is a desire for lack of prescriptive confinement, more into the exploration. The other question is what does finding your freedom mean to you?
mm. You start with the easy ones, don't you?
Yeah, straight away.
What does finding your freedom mean to me? What does finding my freedom mean to me? I suppose it means two things. In finding my freedom, it means I'm no longer bound to the prescribed path that I was supposed to go down. And I say that with hesitance because I was never really sure what that path was. Um, I don't have to do it. I may have thought I had to do it. And sometimes my default now is, oh, I still have to do it. Oh my God, what if everything goes wrong? What if, because I run a yoga studio, as you know, what if the yoga studio doesn't work out and I lose all my students overnight, or someone opens up next door to me? There's a lot of catastrophizing that can go on in my mind. what is fine? But if I could cut free from all the doubt, I think that would be finding my freedom. I haven't done that yet. If I could cut free from all the doubt, all the fear, all the it's bullshit, really. And I've proven it to myself because I did it. I've done it. I mean, I was a company director of a European player in a worldwide market, and I had a mortgage and three kids, and I had a good life. And I chose to cut it and take my and go 3 months. They made me work my 3 month
Oh,
this period.
which
Unbelievable. Yeah,
in sales is unheard of.
yeah. I mean, I was a director, so I had some
Okay,
responsibility.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I had hope they'd just say, yeah, look, just get out. They didn't. They, I had to go through that process to get free of that corporate clamp that was on me. And then all of a sudden, I think it was on April the 6th, 2017, I was out, out. Um, I wasn't really free, and I don't know if I'm still really free because I still get calls from recruiters saying, "Have you finished mucking about? Will you come back yet?" Um,
Really?
yeah,
8 years later.
yeah, yeah. Still get that. Which is a compliment in a way, but it's also a. I read somewhere once that you should never have a plan B. Which warring country was it that they put all their warriors on a boat and I think it was the Mongolians, that they'd sail to another land and then they'd set fire to their
Burn the
boat,
boat.
and they'd either live or die by the victory of their destination. They were not going back. There was no plan B. It was like we move forward or we don't. That's it.
Mm.
And having a recruitment consultant reach out to you from your previous life is like having a bus ticket back to where you came from. And I don't want to take it. I don't. So where does freedom come from? I suppose I need to, if I, in my spirit, I've burnt my boat already. It's gone.
Yeah.
There's no going back. I will never go back. The odd thought that I have of going back is so horrific. I don't come out in sweats, but I do have to stop thinking about it very quickly. So where's my freedom? My freedom comes from metaphorically burning my boat. I will not go back, which means I have to make a success of what I'm doing now. And the only way I know how to make a success out of what I'm doing now, if I'm very candid with you, is to absolutely fucking love doing what I'm doing. And I am so lucky because I get to wake up in the mornings, variable different times. My timetable is always different. And I go from my house, which I love, which we live in with our three kids. I jump in my vehicle and I go 1.5 miles to my studio, and I practice what I do for a living. And what I do for a living is it earns actually now more money than when I was in the corporate world, which is I say that, but
Amazing.
I pay a lot of tax as well. And I pay corporation tax, I
Yeah.
pay national insurance, I pay personal income tax, I pay business tax, I pay there's another type of tax as well. There's some other kinds of tax as well, and I have to pay someone else to work it all out for me. So, but the fun
But
part of it is
you're not paying soul tax anymore, no?
no. That's interesting you say that. Maybe the freedom is that I am no longer paying soul tax. And the toxicity I mentioned before that I still feel, the scars from the corporate world, that's because I was paying soul tax, literally paying soul tax. I was giving up my inner spirit. In the yoga world, we call it the Atman, the inner light, the essence, the truth, the part of you that never decays. Doesn't matter what time, what decade you're in, it's always the same. It's the same as the spirit that came to your body before you were born. That part of you that never changes. That part of me was being the analogy, I think, is almost like having, kebab shops have those knives and they slice
Yeah.
until it gets thinner and thinner and more cooked and
Yeah,
thinner,
yeah,
and all of a sudden there's none left. It's gone. And they throw out the hook and they probably get a new one in, and the old is gone. It's
yeah.
been massacred, eaten by customers who have taken out in bits and enjoyed it, and it's gone. You can't get it back. I feel a bit like that was my soul tax, and I am no longer paying that. I'm no longer paying that. I'm now I work with people. I'm so lucky. I work with people that I really, really enjoy being around. Like the students who come through the space are incredible.
Mm.
I have enough freedom that if there are people who I don't like, and it happens sometimes, I can end that relationship. And it's so the progression of what's at the studio now is accumulation of like some incredible human beings that I get to work with, and teachers, and it's yeah, I'm not paying the soul tax anymore. I'm free from that. I am genuinely free.
Mm.
I'm not free from the scars from when I did the corporate job. That's
Yeah.
the Yeah, I'm very lucky, and I think the biggest difference for me, for what it's worth, is that I went to the edge and I jumped off. And I know a lot of people who go to the edge and don't jump off.
So that's interesting. So talk to me about that. What do you mean by went to the edge as a first question?
Yeah. I looked at my life and my job. There was nothing wrong with it, other than the fact I was deeply unhappy and I was paying soul tax. And I,
Okay, so so as far as there was nothing wrong with it,
well,
apart
if you
from the
look at it,
fact.
if I was being nice and I had a conversation with someone else and they had the things I had when I was still in corporate life, I'd think, well, you're all right. You've got an income, you've got family, you've got, all these things. In my particular case, if I carry on doing that, I probably would have lost a lot of those things. For if I turned out that I'd become an alcoholic, I was drinking, and I went to AA and did the 12-step program, and I'm no longer that. I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in 4 years, 2 months, or 3 months and a couple of days, something like that. But possibly more important, I think the way I was going, I probably would have lost my. I think my marriage would have gone because I was really toxic at work. I was drinking, I was toxic, and I was gone a lot of the time. I was gone 12 hours a day, every day.
Mm.
Monday to Friday, I was just never here. I wasn't present. I didn't know most of the roads in my neighborhood. Now I know the fields around my roads in my neighborhood. It's incredible. So the jumping off point was, it seems okay, and I have a good platform, and there's promotion, all the rest of it. I can earn more, and there's so why stop? Why stop and jump to a place where there's no income? When I jumped out of corporate, I had no income. It's like I had secured one booking for a church hall in Warlingham, on a Thursday night at 8:30. That was it. That's all I had. Nothing else. No customer base. No, just that was it. One booking. Nothing else. So jumping off was getting to the edge of financial security and just letting it go. That was jumping off.
Okay, so and this is fascinating. So you spoke earlier, you mentioned doubt and fear
Mhm.
as being things you're still working to free yourself from.
Mhm.
So what has to have happened for you to get to the edge with that whole kind of the I'm going to use the word perfect, although I understand it's never perfect, but the perfect success story, wife, kids, house, successful in inverted commas job, for you to risk so much. Because it's one thing to say that had I continued in that toxic environment, it's perfectly possible you could have lost the good bits of your life as well as the other stuff. But what has to happen to you personally for you to look over the precipice with all the fear and the doubt and still jump?
That's interesting. I think it's a bit weird. I think what has to happen or had to happen for me was the presence of what I call an invisible hand that kind of took me at the precipice and just shoved me, just and then guided me where I went. It's like I didn't really get a lot of choice. There wasn't much, oh shit, what do I do now? Do I run? It was like, here's this, I take this step and then I'm taking this one. Okay, I'll take this step and I'm taking that one. Okay, I'm taking it. And then I have a hunger, so I'm going to try these things that didn't work, but I'm taking, and each step is like just, just happened. And it's a bit like, when I started the yoga studio, I was very much into something called vinyasa yoga, which is a strong, I know you know exactly what that is. It's a strong dynamic movement form of yoga. Injury and the aging process in my body has changed my ability to deliver that. And that really broke my soul. That was really upsetting. It crushed me and it upset me, and it created loads of doubt in me. But something else that positioned itself right in front of me, that's now starting to replace it, was, and you mentioned it earlier, is sound therapy and gong practitioner. And that came about because someone said something about gongs, and I met a gong. It was Junior, actually. It was a gong player, and he came along and he did a couple of. And then another student said to me, "Why are you getting these other gong players in? Your students only really care about you. Go and learn how to play gongs." And I'm like, "I don't know how to play. I don't want to do that." And the sentence went in, and the invisible hand came along. Before I knew it, I'd gone and done a course somewhere, and then I turned out that someone I met in India had a partner who was doing new courses, and he was a celebrity, and he used to be one of the gladiators. And I went and did a sound practitioner course with him, and bought some gongs, and then just started. And it's just, I haven't really planned any of it.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, it's like a really important, hugely enjoyable. The uptake on it is incredible. My gong baths are usually now sold out 2 or 3 months in advance, which is amazing. The delivery of them is fantastic. When I do it, I use my daughter as the receptionist, and she's also what we call the snore tickler. So someone starts snoring, she walks around and tickles their feet. And it's really, and I meet people in there, and afterwards I have incredible conversations in the corridor. You know that corridor coming out of the
Mm.
studio. And I never sat down and thought, right, I will goal orientate this structural part of my business, and I will. None of that happened. It was just like accidental conversations with amazing students, links from the past, people I met in, like, it sounds wonderful, but it was a course I did in India. It just happened to be in India. Do all this stuff and it pushed me. And now that's not that platform in let's call it a business, because it is incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. And another, I mean, a teacher of mine who've now spent hundreds of hours with, who I know that you're coming to see on March the
Mm.
22nd, also went on some crazy tangent. He started talking about tantra and the energy body and chakras, and that started opening up for me as well. Now my shift went from power yoga to yin yoga to the energy body and if you'd spoken to me about chakras in my early yoga days, I would have said, I'm not interested. I don't care about
Yeah.
chakras. I don't care about the yamas and the yamas. I'm not interested in the 8 limbs. I just don't bother me. Now, all I care about is yin yoga, the energy body, the Sushumna Nadi, the chakras, the presence of tantra, the elements in the body. All that stuff fuels me, and it's coming slowly, and it's coming. I mean, I didn't calculate it. I didn't sit down and try and figure out what to do. It didn't happen in my head. It happened in life.
Organically. It's
Yeah.
it's fascinating because I certainly that last piece, the workshop I'm coming to is about yin and chakras. And I have not, I've done a 200 hours. I've taught, no, let me retract that. I have guided people's practice, physical practice. I don't think I've taught anything. Um, but I was not ready for any work around chakras until now. And I think what the two things I've taken from what you've just said is this idea of, I asked you what had to happen for you to be at the precipice in your fear and doubt and still jump. And it was, what I took from it was you saying, I had no choice. There was a hand on my back that I couldn't resist. Um, and then this idea of the journey you've been on, the organic unfolding of something much deeper than I have a 10-point plan to take this business that is yoga to replace my income from this corporate toxic environment that I can no longer be part of. And the reason it resonates with me so strongly is I think most of us have a very long lead up period to dramatic change in our life. Because as human beings, we are incredibly resilient, we can put up with an awful lot of shit.
Mm.
And because we can put up with it, it's always like, well, yeah, but I am technically surviving here. I don't know what will happen if I change these things. And when we really want change, we're looking for the complete package. We're looking for somebody to come in and kind of go, by the way, Chris or Wyndham or whoever, do this, and this. Voila. Life will be perfect. And it is not a reality. It doesn't work that way. And the big thing I'm taking from you is the surrender that is required. And actually, I think it was in one of your yoga classes that I was first introduced to this idea of surrender. And it's been something that over the last how many years, I wasn't ready for surrender. I really wasn't. I was still fighting. Even though I'd left my corporate career, there was still that part of me that was deeply scarred. Actually, I wasn't scarred. I was still deeply wounded. The scars had yet to start forming. I wasn't ready. The lessons are, and chakras, it was too big a jump in a short space of time. I needed to come to a place where I thought, okay, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. I can only take this step. That's staggeringly difficult, and that is not a state of mind I inhabit constantly. However, as you go through it and as life organically evolves, if you can let it organically evolve, there's so much opportunity and so much delight and surprise and pain and disjointedness and then this beautiful moment where you accept that that is the human experience. You don't get to opt out of it. It's going to happen. You can choose how you face it.
I guess. Yeah. If you're lucky.
Yeah. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So, with the idea of find your freedom, what is something that you consistently have to find freedom from?
Oh, yeah. I'd forgotten I'd said it, but you reflected back to me that I mentioned fear and doubt. I have to find freedom from fear. I think if I were to track the conversations with my wife, who really is my biggest consultant in the business, right? So like, and I think she's like utterly sick of it now. It's like years and years and years of, oh, Sarah, do you think I should do this? Oh, Sarah, do you think I should? There's almost like a rolling the eyes. Sometimes she embraces it and gets into it. She's brilliant. Other times it's almost like, Chris, I've really, I can't listen to you anymore. um, I think when I talk to her, what I'm doing is I'm expressing the fear and doubt I have around something that I might be trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because half the time when I do stuff that works, it's nothing that I don't really go through that process. It just happens. The invisible hand comes behind me and it just happens. So, um, what do I need to have freedom from? So like I keep coming back to fear and doubt. And you also mentioned something about speaking to someone else and having the path laid out in this. I am guilty. As you said it, I smiled and looked at the floor. I'm guilty of that. I paid. I'm embarrassed to say this out loud. I have never said it out loud, but I'll say it out loud now. I paid a consultant um, for a process, and I spent 17 grand to try and improve the yoga business using a consultant who's like a clever guy and everything. And of all the stuff that I went through with that, one-to-one sessions and he did big Zoom sessions and a whole bunch of stuff, like the whole nine yards, big program. All I really got out of it was in my pricing package where I do buy eight, get two free.
Right.
And that's it. Because people like free stuff. And I think my pricing's slightly different to other yoga studios because they'll just do a pack for 10, right?
Yeah.
And I hope I haven't, upset anybody by saying that, but then that's all I got. So I had 17. So I paid a guy all this money to try and give me the perfect solution and show me what to do. And it doesn't work.
No.
That didn't work my wife keeps saying to me, well, you'd probably be surprised stuff will have happened and it will come out somewhere and some of it will, and yeah, it probably will. But it certainly didn't work the way I wanted it to. It wasn't like a prescription or like do A, B, C, D, E, blah, blah, and you will get to everything you want. I just wound up
Yeah.
really frustrated with the whole process. And every time I saw him, I'd think, like, I need to get some value out of this conversation because it's costing me 500 quid. So I'm really paying attention and it's all recorded, but he could never be the invisible hand. He could never be the guiding light of the universe. He could never be the shining of my own Atman to my own Dharma. He could, all that stuff in yoga
Mm.
where we completely let go of the outcome, very hard. It's described in the Sanskrit term um, vairagya, which means to completely let go of the outcome. And then it goes hand in hand with the two wings, if I'm flapping my hands,
Mm.
um, of yoga are vairagya, which is letting go of the outcome, and abhyasa. And abhyasa is a complete dedication to the process with no expectation from anything. So even with the yoga philosophy presented to me, I'm still paying another guy 17 grand. Saying, how do I do it? Tell me exactly what I have to do. And the answer was, you're not going to be given the whole destination in one go, Chris. You can't have it. No, no. You can have the next step if you behave yourself. And that's it. And I'm not going to tell you where it's going to. You can't pay a man to give it to you. You can't buy it. You need to open your heart to it. You need to let go of what's in your head, travel right the way down into your heart, open up and listen to the voice that speaks through your heart in like 1 and 2 word sentences. And it's not going to give you the whole book in one go. It'll give you 2 words, and you need to listen because if you miss it, it's got to say it again, but it'll wait before it says again.
Yeah.
You listen and then move with it. Then when you need some more, it'll say something else. And hopefully I don't
That's
get 162 before
it's
to
fascinating.
going back to it.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because as you were speaking then, I was thinking it's so often true that whenever we take an expectation into something, especially if we're paying for it, but not exclusively if we're paying for it. Expectation is the crucible in which our disappointment is forged. And
Yeah.
it's almost but or and in your story, that feels like the negative space. So you went into that thinking, I'm going to get a plan and he's going to help me build my business and make a success. I'm interested in talking about success as well. I'm going to make a success out of this. The lesson is in the negative space almost, that is like, it's none of that. What's the other side of that? Oh no. You're, the universe is telling me this lesson is in me, isn't it? Oh God. Fine. And if that is a lesson that deeply resonates and you carry with you, 17 grand is a bargain.
Mm,
Doesn't feel like it when you say it out loud, but how
no, it
many
doesn't.
people go through life never realizing that, never being able to tune in to that whisper quiet voice?
A lot. A lot of people never go through life, really. And I think I have a theory on this. The the idea of self, I who I am, is just that. It's an idea. I actually don't know. I feel shy saying this. I don't know who I am. I don't know if I am a real entity. I feel like I am a combination of my own beliefs, none of which are shared in their entirety with any other human being or organism anywhere.
Mm.
It's just a collection of my beliefs, and that creates the sense of who I am. And if I wasn't connected to that, I probably wouldn't have all the fear and doubt. But I am connected to the story of I, and I do think. I mean, it took me a long time to realize that this body, the physical. One of my teachers called it a meat suit, and I put a post on that. And
I
on
saw that, yeah.
did you? I don't think
Yeah.
anyone Someone actually said on there, "Oh, I googled meat suits. Is that a sweater?" And I'm like, "No."
But that does sound like a clothing brand that you could add to the Abba Yoga studio, right? Meat suit
Maybe,
clothing brand.
maybe I could. Um, yeah, I think I got a bit lost in the point there, but I don't really know who I am. And I'm
Yeah,
happy with that. I'm delighted that I'm sort of aware of the fact that I don't really know who I am because I'm
yeah.
not completely, and I see it in other people sometimes, or I think I do, I'm not completely restricted by my own concept of who I am. And I know that I am not the middle of it. Sometimes when I'm really stressed, Wyndham, and I've started doing this recently, I find it very helpful. I start repeating this mantra. It sounds a bit negative, but the mantra I start repeating now is I am not in control. I'm not in
Mm.
control. I'm not in control. And it's difficult because I want to be in control.
Yeah.
But the realization that I'm not in control is so liberating. It's like, oh, yes, and I'll call it the universe or the voice in my heart or the light of the sun, whatever. That's in control. And that has the invisible hand behind my back. And that will direct me if I'm balanced enough to listen to it sometimes. I'm not in control. I can't make that light behind you go off. I can't make the plant next to you stop photosynthesizing. I
Mm.
can't make Jupiter crash into Mars. I can't even make my wife believe me when I say that chicken is good for you. Just I can't control anything, just nothing.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe chicken isn't good for you. Maybe protein isn't good for you. Maybe lean protein's bad. I don't know. But she doesn't believe it. She won't eat it. I can't make her do it because I'm not in control. I'm not in control of anything. I'm just about in control of my own perception, whether or not I realize that I'm not the center of the universe. And I think I do. I do have moments where I realize that I'm not the center of the universe.
Mm.
And when I'm not in a moment like that, I'm in a sense of I, and then I am the center of my universe, and then
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
when things go bad.
Yeah, I love it. That whole not being in control. And the fact that in all of that you said, I don't know a lot. I don't know. It's it was one of the things for me that when I first came to practice with you, I can't remember how many classes in it was, but it was not very many. Um, just as we were moving into Shavasana, and for those listeners who don't practice yoga, Shavasana is corpse pose. It's the final pose of an asana practice, or many other practices as well. And it's my understanding of it has always been it's where you allow the absorption of everything that you've practiced and this connection with yoga and the deeper connection with the universe. Um, and the way you conducted your Shavasanas or our Shavasanas it was a gentle guide into it and then maybe some music, but ultimately silence. And I remember you saying, um, I think you just said, you are enough, and then left us in silence. And for me, my old blueprint, my old brain was there going, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right at all. I mean, that sounds, but the way you said it and the space you created for me, I believed it on some level. And it was like, oh, hang on a minute. Well, he seems sure. So maybe there's some uncertainty here. And that was really the beginning of me going in search of the things I thought I believed and the things I believed to be true, my certainty about the world, which had resulted in me being miserable and saying, well, I can't control anybody else. I cannot change anybody else. If I want change, I'm going to have to change me. And I'm going to start with these beliefs and these obvious things. And there's still a big challenge. Of course, they are. You get to 40 years practicing all this stuff the way society teaches you to practice it. That shit is going to take some while to dislodge. But as you said, it is that ongoing practice of I recognize when my mind is telling me stuff I really don't believe anymore. It's very convincing. And by convincing, I mean it's just fucking loud. Um, and I have to find that space to go, and almost that it is the observer, the I of I am without anything after it. It's just I going, you sure about that? I think we've been here, haven't we? It's a hugely powerful thing.
Yeah, you mentioned the eye. Jamie, who you're coming to see, my teacher, once said to me, it's probably a quote from somewhere else, but he said it to me. He said, yeah, Chris, the eye cannot see the eye.
Yeah.
Like this eye can't see this eye, and the eye can't see itself because it thinks it is. And when you also said my mind tells me stuff that I really don't want to hear just now. And I thought, well, now you're getting there, right? Because which part of you is saying, I don't want to hear what my mind's telling me?
Mm.
It's a genuine question. I mean, what is
Yeah.
the part of you that's saying that?
Yeah. I think this is the really this kind of ties in with you can't get the full plan up front. You can only get it lesson by lesson. It's like you can't buy the full textbook. This is release on demand kind of stuff. Um, and this has been a massive piece of the last couple of years for me is this kind of recognizing and working on this the ego and the mind. The mind for me is a tool, just like my hand is, just like my foot is, just like my heart is. If I look at the heart as a pump, it is a tool, and I can train each of those tools, but we're not taught how to do that with our mind. We're sort of right from day dot almost. Most of us are taught, well, we are that classic quote, I think therefore I am. There's a bit that goes before that. Did you know that? That's not the complete quote.
I didn't
So
know that, but I
so
struggle with that quote. I
yeah.
disagree. But
So
I don't know the bit before.
the
Please.
bit that goes before it is I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. Now, what that means, I don't know, but it reshapes that for me anyway. My initial feeling is the the velocity of my thinking is driven by doubt and a desire to understand, and through my understanding exert control. And that is how I define myself.
Mm.
But looking at the universe and going, well, I don't control any of this. And actually, what do I know? What fundamentally do I know? Not very much. I know there is a choice in every moment. I know that to be true. Might not be the choice I want it to be. And it might be a choice between two things I'd rather not have. However, there is always a choice. There's always a choice to be made.
Is there always a choice?
Yep.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so.
So if I
Because,
said to you, um, can you choose what you believe?
mhm,
You have a choice?
yep,
Genuinely?
I think so.
Really?
Because I think beliefs, uh,
You can choose what you believe by choice.
to some degree, yeah.
To some
Because,
degree.
well, so I think if
So
you
you can
look
either
at,
choose or you can't choose.
yeah,
Choice is not a
if
partial thing, is it?
if I, so what forms our beliefs? How do our beliefs get formed?
Are you changing the subject? Because you
What
mentioned
did
that
you what did you ask me?
you
Can I
believe there's
choose my
always a
beliefs?
choice. There's always a choice in every moment. There's always a choice. You can
Yeah.
make a choice. And my question to you is, can you choose what you believe?
So, and the reason I
Because
was
I
going
don't think
down
you
there,
can. I don't think you can choose what you believe. That's my belief.
yeah, yeah. So
And I'll give you an example if you like
So
to put
there's
your mouse.
two very quick things I do want to hear. Actually, let's hear your example, and then I'll.
No, no, you go first. It's your show. Talk.
Yeah, but anyway, so a lot of our beliefs are created through repetition and have nothing to do with the truth. So the truth and beliefs are different.
Mhm.
If we repeat things often enough, they can form belief because through the repetition can help create an environment for action and behavior, and action and behavior over time provide evidence or whatever it might be. So that's why I say, to some degree, I think you can choose your beliefs. You can choose to believe it's going to be okay. The other thing, now that you've challenged me on it, it almost feels like a little bit of a caveat. I'm going to be a bit slippery here. I never said you get to choose everything. I just said in every moment there is a choice. So I don't necessarily get to choose what that choice is, but I am presented with the world, my life, whatever, that will present me with choices, even if the only choice I am left with is, well, I choose to accept and surrender. That was a bit slippery at the end there, wasn't it? That is what I believe, but
I think you're broadening out the question so much that it's got a.
I'm finding my wiggle room.
And I tend to be, and it's great because my default tends to be to sit into the either or.
Mm,
The either or, and I'm drawn to it. I don't know why. And we should be living in an and world. We should be living in, we could do this and it could be the other way.
mm,
But when you said there's always a choice, something inside of me said, no, there isn't. There isn't a choice because we're so programmed. And you say repetition means that you can choose what you believe in. My view is that a true belief, something that you really hold dear, isn't something that you choose. It's something which is gifted to you by circumstance, by the invisible hand. And the reason I really feel that strongly is because if, and this is taken, I won't lie, this is taken straight out of the Stephen Bartlett, Stephen Bartlett, he's a
mm-hmm.
dragon. He's also got a
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah,
straight out of his podcast, and he's something in one of those. So all credit to him. Which really made me think about the belief systems because I used to think, oh, I can choose what I believe. It's my choice. And the example he gave was, okay, well, if someone took someone very dear to you, another person, a human being very dear to you, and placed him at the end of a gun, and said, yeah, I will shoot this person unless you believe in the Muslim faith or something that you don't already believe in. But, and I will shoot them unless you choose to believe that is the truth now. And it illustrates to me that I don't have that. The best I can do is lie and say, yes, I believe that. But I wouldn't actually believe it. No matter how strong the motivation is, I wouldn't be able to choose that belief. I can't because
yeah,
it's not my choice.
yeah. Interesting. And my immediate feeling is, uh, are we talking about, is it important for me and my philosophy to look at free choice rather than imposed, pressurized, un unconform? You can't. I agree with you completely. If somebody holds a gun to somebody's head and said, "I need you to believe," they're going to be okay if you believe the moon is made of cheese.
Which I
Then it's
do.
like, well, clearly, I already believe that, so you can let them go. So I get your point in that, and this I think comes to, oh, it's a really interesting one. It is a really interesting one because you've gone to, can you choose a belief? And I started by saying in every moment there's a choice,
Yes.
which is true, right? You don't get to make the choice. You don't get to decide what the choices are. The universe is providing you or us with experience that creates choice for us.
Okay.
Now we have the ability to make a decision based on the choices presented to us. We don't have the right to kind of win. We do have the freedom to make a choice. I'm trying to figure out whether your direct question about can you choose your beliefs and me glibly automatically kind of go, yeah, of course you can. In that example, clearly not. And I'm wondering whether I'm splitting hair. I think I am. I think there's a semantic thing, which is the point, right? It's the understanding of language. You don't get to choose what you want. You don't get to just decide, oh, my choice is either I become a millionaire or I become something else. That's not how it works. The universe is providing a series of choices. You get to select what that is. I'm going to have to think about that in more detail about the belief thing.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Hey, look, I mean, I think you almost said it earlier when I was talking about how I came to freedom. I came to a part of my life where there almost was no choice.
Mm.
I wasn't going to stay doing what I was doing. There was a choice. I mean, I could have stayed there, right?
Mm.
But there was, you're right, there was a choice,
You
but
could have
it
you could have
kind of
allowed the
wasn't.
fear to, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
and interesting
I
when you
kind of
said
got to a
that.
place where I had to jump, and if I'd stopped and thought about it, I probably would have procrastinated a bit longer and made the choice to not jump.
Yeah,
In the pureness of a moment when it happened without my mind considering the choice.
yeah,
It was like
yeah,
a gut-wrenching movement in a direction that I didn't really choose because it was my fucking destiny. It was a universe saying, all right, stop pissing about. I've given you all this freedom, all this choice. I'm bored now. You're going this way. And that's that. And I went, oh, okay. I went,
yeah,
I didn't have to make a choice. In fact, if I made a choice, I probably would have got it wrong. Thank God it wasn't my choice. Because I think if
yeah,
it was, I'd still be in toxic, I wouldn't be a happy person.
yeah.
And we wouldn't know each other.
No, absolutely.
The
Yeah, well,
whole world that we know each other through wouldn't exist.
yeah. And actually, interestingly, the reason we know each other is because we each had that moment where we felt there was no choice. That I'm no longer in direct control of this. I still wonder whether yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's going to have to. Oh, it's going to make me reflect. Oh, Chris, I'm going to have to go and reflect on that particular one.
The question
Beliefs.
is, Wyndham, do you have a choice not to reflect on it?
I do. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I do. Well, because interestingly, I
Because you
get to
just use
choose.
the words, I'm going to have to reflect on it,
Yeah,
which
and I really hate the language as
which
well.
infers that there is no choice.
It was
Now I'm
and
splitting hairs.
yeah, but it's a really important one, and I think it is fascinating and really important
Where's the
because
freedom in this?
it's automatic language that I don't believe in. I
Also, if
don't
we look at
believe
the
the
title,
have to.
Find Your Freedom, surely
Yeah,
there has to be a choice to be free to find your freedom.
yeah, I agree. I think so. I think for me, what is it I'm trying to get to? I think it's looking at life, recognizing that there are there are choices. I'm hedging my language now. Uh, in every moment. So the question is, what are they? First and foremost. Now, I recognize that there are times in our life where we act without a conscious mulling over, without a conscious pros and cons, without
Mm.
a conscious recognition of the potential risk. Um, yeah, interesting.
I'm thinking
Not even
about
going to
the.
complete that
I'm
now.
currently thinking about the elements. I'm quite sort of interested in the elements. As you know, there are four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Um,
Hmm.
the elements are present in everything. They're present in us. And we can have certain typologies where we're more like one of the elements. And it's just how human beings are. So, for example, if you look at the element of earth itself, or if you take the chakra system and you look at the first chakra, which is Muladhara chakra, the pelvic floor, the physical connection with the earth. Chakra number one is a connection to the earth. The quality of earth itself, of the ground that this planet we live on, is earth is the ground is stable. It offers stability. It offers grounding. It doesn't move, right? The other elements do, like water moves, fire moves, earth doesn't move, it stays put
Hmm.
most of the time. It also moves.
Mm.
So an earthquake will come along and move everything, and then nothing's the same again afterwards.
Yeah.
And in human beings, we can take on the elements in our characteristics as well. For example, I tend to be, personally, as an individual, quite earthy in my character, which means I will hold ground, hold ground, hold ground, hold ground. But when it changes, boom, it never goes back. And I mentioned it before with you earlier. There's some individuals who've been through my studio who I've pretty much removed. And that's
Mm.
for me, that's the earth moving and never going back. And that causes ruptions.
Yeah.
I have a lot of stability for most people all the time, and I offer that, I hold that space. But that element in me means that I will just quake sometimes, and they are gone forever by my choice. And that's not me choosing that. That's the quality of earth in my character. My wife, for example, is without doubt a very fiery person. And you can see it in her behavior. She will flare up and she will calm down. She doesn't like being contained, just like fire, right?
Mm.
Actions can be very destructive, just like fire, but then there's a lot of creativity that is born out of the destruction that she creates, just like fire. There's fire, and it's not because she's choosing to be, aggressive or angry or anything, which can be. It's the element in her character that flares. And
Mm.
it's interesting that she's fire and I'm earth because earth and fire sit very well together. Is any of that our choice? No, not really. It's just the element in our physiology and our character. And it's not really a
Mm.
choice. I can't choose to be fiery. I
Yeah. Yeah.
can't, I don't have that. I also believe that you get people who are charismatic and you get people who are charming. And if you're charismatic, and I happen to believe that I'm quite charismatic, you can't really choose to be charming.
Right.
And because if you're charismatic and try and be charming, you come off as a bit creepy. And if you're charming and try and be charismatic, you come off as a bit arrogant. You can't really, you are pretty much one or the other. Really, so I feel like the destiny of life pulls us down certain avenues where we don't have that much choice. And trying to exercise too much choice in the experience I have can lead to internal disarray, friction, doubt, fear, a whole bunch of stuff. And just I'm not in control. I have no choice. I've come back to that choice thing again, haven't I? Just it feels like
Yeah.
you threw the
It's a
choice
really, it's an
stone into
interesting one.
and it's like it's sitting there saying, "No, I won't be kicked out." Because I
Yeah.
tried for a moment there. We tried to brush it off the path and just go skipping away, like no,
Yeah.
it's come back again. Interesting
It is fascinating.
choice.
It is that you said it earlier about actually you're quite binary and it's either this or that. And I very much used to be, and it made me miserable, or it contributed to making me miserable. So I am consciously choosing, or I went through the process of consciously choosing to question every piece of certainty I held as it came up. I mean, there are still some that will unearth themselves, and I'll catch them and go, "Oh, I seem pretty convinced about that. What's that based on?" Um, So I don't like certainty that ends up walling us in. But I think our certainties are the absolute limit of what's possible for us.
I don't know what certainty is.
No. And this, I think, is one of the
I don't
fascinating
identify
things.
with that at all.
This,
Certain about what? I'm not certain about anything. I know that I'm not certain about anything.
yeah, which is where I am now as well. But it isn't where I used to be. I used to be absolutely, if we'd had this conversation 10 years ago, I would have been certain you were out of your mind,
You might have been right.
right? Because I wasn't,
Today, maybe that's the truth. Maybe
yeah.
that's yeah. You know what satire is?
What is really interesting is that this is the way life unfolds, right? I had to go through a transit. I didn't have to. I chose a transitional path.
Here
I
we go.
didn't. Yeah, it's fascinating.
I had to. No, I didn't have to. I had a choice. I've definitely got a choice. I've got a choice. I'm certain I've got a choice. Are you certain?
Yeah,
Is that true?
yeah. Oh, Chris. But
there's a question. There's a question
yeah,
around this, and
because
it's what is true? What do you know, Wyndham, for absolute certainty
yeah,
is true? Like pure truth. What do you know is true? In yoga, it's the second yama, so
mm,
satya, which means truth. What in a yogic way, so in a holistic, enlightened, unpolluted way, what do you know is true? What fact is there?
yeah. I mean, even the fact that you've
Am I
I mean, I
really
don't
here
know
talking?
any. Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, that whole
Am
kind
I
of
artificial intelligence?
unpolluted is like, well, I'm 50 this year, so how can anything I think be unpolluted?
Hmm. Or just true? What's true?
Yeah.
That you're 50? Well, if you're 50, are you
Yeah.
exactly the same as anybody else who's the same date age as you
Yeah.
in terms of your physiology, how you look, your responsiveness, your mobility? Are you the same as someone else's? The answer is no. So are
Mm.
you actually 50? Maybe in measurement of how long it's you've been going around the sun on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. But
But
even then, it's like every cell in our body changes every 7 years. So,
but if you were on a different part of the planet, would you have traveled as far?
yeah, don't
And
know.
it sounds silly, but it is a bit silly, but it's also quite
Well,
big.
I
It's
think,
what's true.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's one of
What
those,
is true?
yeah, I don't know, nothing, everything, something. But what it is illustrative for me is an example of you cannot hope to have to I could not have envisaged where I would be now as I perceive it from the point my lowest point. I and if somebody had said I can just give you this now, this is it, you're gonna have to boom, this is now your perspective. I couldn't have done it. It is here's one lesson, here's
Mm,
another lesson,
mm.
here's another lesson. And actually, you know what? You get to a point where it's almost like, okay, now you know all that stuff we've just learned? That's beginner stuff, and it's not really true. But we needed you to get to this point for you to even be able to consider this. That's how
Yeah,
my life feels anyway. And this is a
that's lovely.
brilliant example because it's that there's a choice in every moment. It's something I trot out all the time. What it, what I think now, literally as we're talking, what I think it is I'm telling that to my 40-year-old self who felt there were no choices. Now that
Well,
person had a. Do you see? There's a difference. It's like you have to get to a certain point in maths before they replace all the numbers with letters. You
mm,
have to go through the numbers bit to understand what the letters mean. But I couldn't possibly approach the letters and understand the maths of it. There's like a trajectory to be gone on. I think you and I could just keep talking for a
yeah,
very long time. I'm
maybe we
conscious of
should
time,
because you'll lose all the listeners.
and I really want to respect your time. So, um, what I would like to ask you though, it's been brilliant, as I knew it would be. So thank you so much for being this first episode in this season. What I would like to ask you is, I get frustrated when I listen to people say, okay, what's one thing people can do, or rather, what's the one thing? Like, there's
You can ask me that. I'll happily give you an answer. I've got one ready for you.
what is a thing people can do if they are currently feeling trapped, like they have a lack of freedom. They don't quite understand what that means, but there is this oppressive feeling in their life. What is something they can do?
The best answer I can give you, which I'll deliver wholeheartedly from not my brain, but from my soul, is develop a meditation practice. And I'm not talking about buying a new app for your phone or getting something on your Apple Watch or develop a meditation practice. So learn to sit in stillness. And if you have and I hear this so much, I'm not even frustrated by it anymore because I've heard it so much. The line that comes up, I hear so much is, oh, I can't meditate. I can't stop my thoughts from running. I just think too much. Okay. That's it. The fact that you know you're thinking too much means you've started the journey. So don't resent it.
Mm,
And if you're saying what's the not one thing, but a thing that you can do, develop a meditation practice. Without meditation practice, you are for sure going to get trapped somewhere in your own mind forever until the only break is to maybe die and get reborn and maybe get another chance then. But even then, even if all that's true and whether you believe it or not, whether you choose to believe rebirth or reincarnation or not, up to you, even then, you'll still take a whole bunch of stuff out of this life that's limited because you never sat still long enough for the universe to speak to you through your heart in those short sentences. So what one thing would you do? Or what thing could you do? I would say develop a meditation practice. And maybe that's two things then. Don't stop at the first hurdle, which is, oh,
yeah,
I can't stop my brain from thinking, right? Okay, that's your first step. That as you described it, that's the beginners. You got to go through that. That's the numbers, right?
yeah,
Go through that and then realize that those numbers are there and you get that progression into the letters. Develop a meditation practice.
yeah.
So,
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. I've really enjoyed that. One final thing. Where can people find you?
oh,
What
thanks.
what do
Yeah.
you have coming up? How can
Yeah.
people kind of engage with you and work with you and feel that, because the space you've created in your studio is genuinely, it feels like an exhalation when you step into, or for me anyway, it felt like an exhalation when I crossed the threshold into the studio. You had a little transition corridor where you go, okay. And then when I stepped into the studio, it was a big exhalation and like, okay, it's going to be okay. So where can people get hold of you? How do people get in touch, work with you, whatever it might be?
Um, for sure. Yeah. Like, I'm glad that you asked that. I wouldn't have volunteered the information. I mean, I run a yoga studio, halfway between Croydon and Caterham, as you know. It's called Abay Yoga, Abayoga. It's like the ABA and then yoga. And then ABAY is my surname, Chris Abay. Um, you can reach me on chris@abayoga.co.uk. What have I got coming up? That's a really good question. I recently wrote a new workshop called the Tranquility Therapy Workshop, which is it was a 6 hour period of my life where I just like created this thing, forgot about it, put it in the timetable, and one student bought it and said, "Oh, it's clashing with two other things." Like I had to clear, and it sold out overnight. And I told it's like, wow. So what have I got coming up? I've got the Tranquility Workshop, the Tranquility Therapy Workshop coming up on it's on the, when is it? I think it's on the 22nd of February, 222 it worked out, from 10 o'clock to 12:30. That's in the studio. That's 2.5 hours of gong therapy, yin yoga, and guided meditation. And it's really designed to reset the soul. We've also got gong. sound baths coming up, so I do at least one a month. They are sold out, but if you go to the website, abayoga.co.uk, and click on events, there's a drop down to gong bars and workshops. Also got a retreat coming up in March. I think it's on 22nd. It's a 1 day retreat where yogis are invited or students are invited to come and spend time in the studio all day long. And we've got a collection of different teachers, different styles. We move through this beautiful curve, if you like. We open with a cacao ceremony to split open the heart. We meet each other. We then do a strong vinyasa flow. We then learn from the Ashtanga practice. We'll then do a really deep dive into the yin practice. And then we kind of close. We do lots of pairs work all the way through. We close with a really nice gong sound healing. So that's on the 22nd of March. Also, Jamie's coming to the studio. He's one of my teachers. He's coming in on the 2nd of March. If you go to abayoga.co.uk and look at the events tab, it will tell you all this stuff. I highly recommend that you come into the studio. It's on Hamsey Green Parade in Hamsey Green Parade on Limpsfield Road, halfway between Sanderstead and Warlingham. If you know the area, there's a little orange sign outside. There is a small orange door, and as Wyndham knows, you walk in and hopefully leave the world behind you. Take your shoes off, take your coat off, take your digital connection to the world off, leave it in the reception. There's even a worry hook to put those onto. And when you come into our space, it's warm, it's welcoming. There's no external distractions. There's no windows. We control the lighting, the smells. It's usually Himalayan rock salt lamps and a stargazer and that kind of stuff. It's really, really nice in there. And I've spent years refining it. It's beautiful. And so, yeah, look, abayoga.co.uk, come to the studio, check out our events. And if you want to get hold of me, Chris at abayoga.co.uk, or you can find me on Facebook, although I don't like Facebook. Sorry, I don't.
Yeah.
Instagram as well. I don't like, I recently did the thing on your phone where it limits your
Yeah.
social media time to no more than 15 minutes a day. And my God, that feels nice. So I'm not detached from it. I just don't spend a lot of time with it. But I do love questions. So please email me if you want anything at all. I really like to connect with people.
Yeah. And fascinatingly, anyone who I completely concur with Chris, follow his schedule on abayoga.co.uk or .com? .co.uk,
Yeah.
because the workshops sell out. There's a reason for that. And if you do pose him a question, don't expect an answer. But the whatever you get will be deeply reflective, because I remember a long time ago, after one of the classes, sending you an email saying, Chris, what exercises, what asana, what kind of flow would you recommend that would help me get to handstand? And you just sent a question back saying, why do you want a handstand? And that was it. It was like, oh God. So thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate you sparing me your time. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you on the 2nd. I think that's going to be a very interesting workshop.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned from you, as I always, every conversation I have with you, I always learn from you. And I love that about you. It's fascinating knowing you and having the connection with you. So I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. As always, if you are enjoying these podcasts, please write a review, please rate them, please share them with people who you think might find them interesting or useful. If you have any feedback, please let me know. You can get me on handsupifyou'rehuman@gmail.com. I really hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. It's been absolutely brilliant. And with that, I will leave you to a joyful and peaceful few days, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.